The SEALs thought they were doomed. Trapped in a valley, outnumbered, bullets raining from the ridges. Then, out of nowhere, gunfire cracked from the high ground. A lone figure they never expected. A woman named Sarah. This is the story of how one shot changed everything. The valley looked calm. Too calm. Morning light fell across the jagged ridges like broken glass, painting long shadows that reached down into the basin below. The air smelled of dust and pine, sharp and dry, every breath stinging the throat. Rocks shifted under boots as the SEALs moved in silence. Rifles angled low, eyes high. Sarah watched them from the ridge. She hadn't meant to be here, not like this. Her watch was broken, its cracked glass face frozen at a time that no longer mattered. She kept it anyway. It reminded her that life could stop without warning. Every tick that failed to sound was a reminder that survival wasn't guaranteed. Below, Commander Reynolds Hawk led his men down the slope. His voice was quiet, sharp hand signals carrying more weight than words. They trusted him, but even he felt the air closing in, the silence pressing too tight. It wasn't right. Valleys like this didn't stay quiet. Sarah lay flat against the stone, her cheek pressed to the dust. The rifle in her hands felt heavy but steady. She wasn't SEAL, not part of their unit. She was an outsider, unseen, unknown, carrying a past that clung to her like smoke. She had followed the same dusty road days ago, an old road worn by boots, wheels, and too many losses. The SEALs moved carefully, hugging rocks, sliding behind boulders, scanning every ledge. Sparrow, the youngest, tried to keep his breathing steady. He touched the inside pocket of his vest where an empty wallet lay. He had carried it for months, a reminder of the family he couldn't go home to, not yet. It was a strange thing to hold on to, but in war, strange things kept men sane. "Eyes up," Hawk whispered. The valley narrowed, rocks closing in like jaws. The ridges above stretched high, the kind of ground any smart enemy would claim. Ghost, the intel officer, raised his hand, signaling caution. He had seen the satellite images. He knew what high ground meant. Sarah could feel the tension even from her perch above them. She wasn't supposed to intervene, not yet. But something in her chest tightened as she watched the unit creep forward, unaware of how exposed they were. The wind shifted. A hawk circled overhead, its shadow sliding across the rocks. Sarah adjusted her scope, following the line of cliffs beyond the SEALs. She knew these ridges. She had been here before. The ground carried memory, and memory carried pain. Hawk crouched low, peering ahead through binoculars. He spotted nothing. The valley was still. Too still. He motioned for the men to keep moving. Sparrow's boots scraped against loose gravel, the sound louder than it should have been. He froze, heart hammering. The silence that followed felt heavier than gunfire. Doc, the medic, gave him a nod, steady, calm, as if to say, "Breathe, keep moving, it's nothing." But Sarah knew better. Nothing in valleys like this was nothing. She closed her eyes briefly, the broken watch pressing cold against her wrist. She thought of the last time she had been here. Dust, smoke, voices that had vanished too soon. She had sworn she would never return. Yet here she was, crawling on her belly above strangers who didn't know her name. The SEALs kept descending, their formation tight, every man covering the other. Hawk lifted a fist, halt. He scanned again, lips pressed into a line. He could feel it. The wrongness. The valley was holding its breath, and then the first shot rang out. Sharp, clean. A single crack from the ridge opposite Sarah. It shattered the silence, echoing off the cliffs. A bullet ricocheted near Sparrow's boot, spraying stone shards into his leg. He stumbled, dropping behind a rock, blood already streaking his pants. "Contact! High Ridge, 3 o'clock. Hawk's voice cut through the chaos. The valley exploded. Gunfire rained down from the cliffs, sharp bursts bouncing off stone, dust flying in clouds that stung the eyes. The SEALs dove for cover, returning fire in precise bursts, but the enemy had height, numbers, and vision. Sarah pressed flat against her ridge, teeth clenched. Her finger brushed the trigger of her rifle, every muscle coiled. She wasn't with them. They didn't know her, but the valley didn't care. If she stayed silent, they would die. The broken watch ticked in her memory, though it hadn't ticked in years. She lifted her rifle, sighted the ridge across from her, and steadied her breath. Below, Hawk shouted for suppressing fire, his men pinned against the rocks. Sparrow's empty wallet lay half fallen from his pocket, its flap open like a mouth that could no longer ask for help. The gunfire grew heavier. Dust turned the valley into a blur. Hawk shouted again, his voice raw. God isn't with us, move, move. Sarah exhaled, finger tightening on the trigger, and then from her ridge a single shot cracked through the chaos. It cut clean. It cut sharp. It changed everything. Gunfire chewed into the rocks, spitting dust into the men's faces. The valley, once still, now roared like a furnace. Bullets whined across the open air, ricocheting sharp, cruel notes. Sarah's first shot had dropped a figure on the ridge. The man tumbled backward, rifle clattering against stone. It wasn't much. Not against the dozens still firing. But it bought the SEALs a breath, a sliver of space. Shift left. Hawk barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. The men moved in practiced rhythm, each burst of fire covering the next. They had done this before. Many times. But training didn't erase fear. Pinned low, Sparrow's hands shook as he reloaded. The empty wallet in his vest pressed against his ribs like a weight. He thought of the photo that used to be inside. A faded picture of his mother, long gone now. He had thrown it out. Couldn't look at it anymore. All that remained was the shell, hollow as the feeling gnawing at him. Above, Sarah crawled to a better angle. Her elbows scraped raw against stone, blood mixing with dust. She ignored it. She had no radio, no way to warn them she was here, only the language of gunfire. She lined her scope on another silhouette, steadying her breathing. She fired. The crack echoed down the ridge. Another enemy fell. The SEALs noticed. "Who the hell is that?" Ghost muttered, squinting upward through the smoke. Hawk didn't answer. He didn't have time. But part of him wondered the same. The enemy pressed harder. Grenades thudded into the rocks, sending shards flying. Doc dragged Sparrow into cover, checking his bleeding leg. "You're good. Stay low. Keep your head," he muttered, wrapping it fast, efficient. "God isn't with us," someone whispered again, raw, jagged. It hung in the air, heavier than the gunfire. Sarah clenched her jaw. She knew that feeling too well. She had said it herself once, years ago, on this same dusty road when her own unit had been cut down. She still heard their voices at night. The broken watch on her wrist ticked silently in her mind, counting seconds that never came back. Another burst of enemy fire forced Hawk's men flat against the stone. They couldn't stay pinned, not here. He scanned the terrain, calculating. The enemy was hurting them, funneling them deeper into the valley where there was no cover. A kill box. Sarah fired again, breaking the rhythm. She shifted fast, moving along the ridge like a shadow. Her shots were precise, cutting gaps into the enemy's fire. For a heartbeat, silence stretched. Smoke curled in the sunlight. The SEALs used it, pushing to a shallow depression that gave them better angles. "Whoever's on that ridge," Hawk growled, "keep it coming." Sarah didn't hear him. She was too far. But she kept firing. Each shot pulled her deeper into the fight she swore she'd left behind. She slid behind a boulder, catching her breath. Her canteen was empty. Her lips cracked dry. She thought of turning back, walking the dusty road out of the valley, leaving them to their fate. They weren't her mission, not her brothers, not her ghosts, but her finger brushed the broken watch. Her chest tightened. Below, Sparrow's wallet slipped from his vest. It fell into the dust, open and empty. He stared at it, heart hammering. He knew if they died here, it would stay behind. Forgotten. Just another scrap in a valley already littered with bones and metal. "Push left," Hawk shouted again. They scrambled. Rocks cut into their knees. Smoke burned their lungs. Sarah raised her rifle one more time. Her scope caught a figure aiming an RPG. Her pulse steadied. She fired, clean, precise. The man crumpled, weapon falling useless. For the first time, Hawk's eyes caught the silhouette on the ridge. A figure crawling low, a shadow framed in sun. Not one of his men. A stranger. "Ghost," Hawk muttered. "Tell me I'm not seeing this." But before Ghost could answer, another roar shook the valley. Not gunfire. Not grenades. Louder. Closer. From the east ridge, fresh enemy reinforcements poured in. Dozens more. Their shadows cut sharp against the light. The valley wasn't done with them yet. The reinforcements came fast. Their boots clattered on rock, rifles spitting fire before they hit cover. The SEALs ducked low, pressed tighter against the boulders. The valley shrank around them, a noose pulling closed. Sarah shifted, teeth gritted. Her rifle barrel burned hot, smoke stinging her eyes. She adjusted her scope, scanning. Too many. She couldn't stop them all. Below, Hawk's voice stayed sharp. "Delta team, flank left!" Alpha, suppression fire. But even as they moved, Hawk knew they were cornered. Outnumbered 3-1, cut off. Radio's dead from interference. No air support. Just them in the valley, and someone on the ridge. Sparrow crawled low, dragging his rifle, his leg wound, slowing him down. The empty wallet lay in the dust behind him, forgotten for now. His hands trembled, not from fear alone, but from exhaustion. Every breath felt like fire. Doc stayed close, steady as stone. He patched wounds even as bullets whined around him. "Stay awake," he muttered to Sparrow. "Stay alive." The enemy pressed harder, their fire coordinated, precise. Dust rose in choking clouds. Hawk scanned desperately for options, eyes sharp even in chaos. He caught the flash of Sarah's rifle again, one shot, two, three, taking targets the SEALs couldn't even see. "Someone's watching over us," Sparrow muttered through gritted teeth. "Or watching us die," Ghost replied. Sarah crawled further along the ridge. Her elbows bled, her chest ached. She didn't think. She aimed, fired, moved. Her broken watch tapped against the stone with every inch. A rhythm of survival. The SEALs used her cover fire, pushing toward a line of rocks shaped like jagged teeth. It gave them breathing room, but not enough. "Commander," Ghost shouted. "We're boxed in." Hawk clenched his jaw. He knew. He had felt this before. Missions where the math never added up, where survival meant miracles. Sarah shifted again, pressing herself flat. She spotted the road behind the valley, the one she had walked alone days ago. Dusty, empty, waiting. That was the only way out, but it was far and open. A death run. The SEALs couldn't make it, not without help. Her chest tightened. She thought of her brother, of the ambush that had stolen him here years ago. She had carried his empty wallet ever since, tucked deep in her pack. She had left it on the ridge that morning, swearing she was done with ghosts. But here she was again. Below, Hawk's men were running low on ammo. Ghost shouted for counts, numbers too low to last. Doc pressed another bandage, blood soaking through. Sparrow whispered a prayer he didn't believe in. The enemy advanced, shadows closing in, fire hammering down. Sarah's hand tightened on the rifle. She drew a deep breath, pressed her cheek to the stock, and sighted down at the enemy commander. She fired. The man dropped. The line faltered for a heartbeat. Silence held. Dust swirled. Hawk's eyes cut up to the ridge, locking on her shadow again. Whoever she was, she had just turned the tide. But then, from the southern cliffs, a new crack of gunfire split the air. Different, sharper. Aimed not at the SEALs, but at Sarah. Sarah rolled sideways as the bullet clipped the stone by her head, shards slicing her cheek. She ducked low, heart pounding. Someone had spotted her. Hawk saw it too. The silhouette on the ridge staggered, then disappeared behind a boulder. "Whoever's up there," Ghost muttered. "They're about to get killed." "Not if we move," Hawk snapped. "Cover fire, push!" The SEALs surged again, rifles barking, forcing the enemy to duck. Dust clouds rose thick, choking. Sarah pressed her bleeding cheek, teeth gritted. She hadn't planned this. She hadn't planned any of it. She could walk away now, slide down the backside of the ridge, disappear again. But her watch ticked silently in her head. Broken. Frozen. She thought of her brother. Of the promise she had made to him, never to leave anyone behind. She grabbed her rifle, stood, and fired again. Her shots cracked clean, taking down the sniper who had nearly killed her. The SEALs below noticed. Sparrow lifted his head, eyes catching her figure for a split second. "Commander," he rasped. "It's a woman." Hawk didn't answer. He was too busy keeping them alive. But his eyes flicked back to the ridge. A woman, alone, covering them. Sarah shifted down the slope, moving closer. Bullets snapped past her, but she kept going. She moved like a ghost, silent, relentless. When she reached the base of the ridge, she crouched behind stone, close enough now to see their faces. Dust-streaked, bloodied, eyes burning with survival. She saw Sparrow clutching his bandaged leg, his empty wallet lying forgotten in the dirt. She saw Hawk, sharp-eyed, scanning her the way he scanned enemy fire. "You with us?" Hawk barked, voice rough. Sarah's throat was dry. She hadn't spoken in hours. Her voice came out low, rasping. "Not yet," that was all. Then she raised her rifle and fired past him, cutting down a figure trying to flank them. The SEALs didn't have time to question. Not here, not now. They shifted with her, moving as one, though she wasn't one of them. Not yet. Together they pushed toward the northern rocks, the only path with cover. Dust rose like smoke. The air stank of cordite and sweat. The valley roared around them, and then another sound. Not rifles. Not grenades, louder, closer engines, enemy trucks grinding down the dusty road from the north. Reinforcements. More than before. The valley was about to close for good. The trucks rattled into view, metal frames shaking across the rough road. Enemy fighters jumped from the beds, rifles raised, eyes wild. Sarah's gut twisted. She had seen this before. Years ago, same road, same valley, same impossible numbers. The SEALs dug in behind rocks, low on ammo, lungs burning. Hawk's jaw tightened. They couldn't hold much longer. Sarah slid beside Sparrow, firing clean bursts. He stared at her, shock in his dust-streaked face. She was real. Flesh and blood. Not a ghost. "Don't stop moving," she muttered, voice hard. It was the first thing she had said to any of them. Sparrow clutched it like a lifeline. Doc patched another wound, hand steady even as bullets chewed into the rocks. "We're running out," he told Hawk. "I know," Hawk replied, eyes scanning. Sarah shifted, pulling something from her pack. An old wallet, worn and empty. She stared at it for a second, thumb brushing the cracked leather. Her brother's, left behind when the valley took him. She had carried it ever since, though it held nothing. Just weight. Just memory. She shoved it back into her pack and raised her rifle again. The enemy pressed closer, their shouts echoing. Dust rose thick as smoke. The air turned hot, sharp with gunfire. "Commander!" Ghost shouted. "They're trying to flank both sides." Hawk's mind raced. Too many angles. Too many guns. Sarah fired, her shots cutting gaps. But even she knew. This valley was swallowing them whole. Then, through the smoke, Ghost caught something. A faint crackle in his radio. Static, broken words. But words, command, fire support, inbound. The line cut again. Hawk's eyes narrowed. It might be nothing. It might be everything. The enemy pushed closer, their boots pounding the dusty road. Bullets shredded the air, and then, faint but real, a sound rose above the chaos. The distant roar of engines. Not trucks this time. Aircraft. The roar grew louder. The sky trembled. Jets cut across the horizon, engines screaming through the valley. The enemy faltered, their fire breaking. Shadows scrambled for cover. Hawk seized the moment. "Push! Take the ridge!" The SEALs surged, adrenaline burning what little strength they had left. Sarah moved with them, fast, precise. Her shots guided their climb, cutting enemies before they reached higher ground. Dust rose in storms. The valley thundered. Sparrow limped forward, clutching his rifle, his empty wallet thumping against his vest. Doc hauled him up when he stumbled, never letting go. Sarah's broken watch tapped against stone as she climbed. Frozen time, frozen loss, but still she moved. The jets roared again, their guns spitting fire into enemy trucks. Explosions tore through the valley, shaking the ground. Heat rolled over the rocks. The SEALs reached the ridge, gasping, bleeding, alive. They fired down, finishing what the air support had begun. For the first time, the valley grew quiet. Smoke drifted. Dust settled. The enemy was broken, scattered, gone. Hawk scanned his men. Every face streaked with dirt, every body aching but alive. He turned to the woman crouched beside them. Rifle steady. Eyes cold but burning. "Name," he demanded, voice rough. Sarah met his gaze. "Doesn't matter." She stood, backing away. The watch on her wrist caught the light. The wallet in her pack weighed heavy. "Wait," Sparrow called, but she was already moving, fading into the smoke. The dusty road stretched behind her, endless, merciless. She walked it alone, step steady, fading into shadow. The SEALs watched her go, and someone whispered softer this time. "God isn't with us." Sparrow shook his head. "No, she was.